before I introduce the Trade Commissioner of Canada, what I want to do is quickly give you all a sense of what we're going to do today. This is a focus on the Biden infrastructure plan and how to think about infrastructure projects and business development in the context of this plan. One of the big themes is going to be digitization, electrification. So you're going to look at renewable energy projects, transmission projects, and all of the traditional infrastructure projects that we all think about throughout our lives. One of the things I want to emphasize is what a wonderful experience this has been working with Canada and the Canada team. The U.S.-Canada relationship, I think, is phenomenal. And I think it's going to be critical as we go forward and build infrastructure over the next 10 years. Business development is a big theme of this event. As Janina just said, this is a chance to meet new people. I was mentioning to the Trade Commissioner before we went on that most of us haven't met anybody new in 14 months. So our private meetings and also GVIP is a chance to, as you go in and register in GVIP, your profile will appear on the map, and you can go click on anybody who's registered and start a conversation with them while you're participating in the webinar, just like you do at a regular conference. So the interactive piece of that, I think, is really interesting. We're really excited about the event today, and I want to introduce Sara Wilshaw. Sara is the Chief Trade Commissioner of Canada and the Assistant Deputy Minister for International Business Development. She's been a senior government executive 26 years, and she leads a global team that helps Canadian businesses find new customers, troubleshoot market access, sell their products, and grow businesses. Prior to her current role, Sara served as Director of Operations, Foreign and Defense Policy Secretariat at the Privy Council Office. In this role, she provided strategic analysis and advice to the Prime Minister, the Clerk of the Privy Council, the National Security and Intelligence Advisor, and the Foreign and Defense Policy Advisor on matters concerning Canada-U.S. relations, Latin America, trade issues, climate change, human rights, and the UN. So you're, Sara, a perfect person to open the event. And I understand that you lived in Dallas for a couple of years as well. And we really appreciate you participating and kicking us off. So thank you very much. And again, thank you for your team. We've really had a marvelous experience working with your folks.
Oh, that's so great to hear. And thank you, Norman. Hello, bonjour, bienvenue. Welcome, everybody, to this really exciting Infrastructure Leadership Forum. It is such a pleasure to be here with you this morning. I'm honored to be joining you from Ottawa, Canada, the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. And I'm grateful to them, and I'm grateful to all of you for joining me from the territories and communities in which you are located. It's really fantastic to see such a high level of interest and the attendance for this discussion, which is really central to that question of just how do we build back better. And before we get into all that, I also want to say a really big thank you, un gros merci to our friends and colleagues at EDC and CGLA for partnering with us. Et je voudrais aussi saluer et remercier nos collègues provinciaux, our provincial colleagues as well, who helped us to recruit companies and promote this program throughout their respective networks and ecosystems. So huge thanks to everybody for this. So, as all of you know, this past year has really brought a lot of instability and change for all of us. The pandemic has introduced many professional and personal challenges, and it's really been all about the pivot. And what an incredible thing to see, truly. From my vantage point as the Chief Trade Commissioner, you know, it's really how everybody's responded to protect all of what we're doing here. And I think about, you know, the participants in this program today, how you've worked to protect your businesses, your workers, and your families. And I know, and I've seen up close, the quick and decisive action that Canada took both at home and with our allies in the US to protect our citizens. That was a tough decision, right? Canada and the US worked really fast to establish measures at the border while ensuring that we could facilitate essential trade and research and development that was so critical. And what's interesting is this is just what we do, right? It is what we do so well together, but it also has had an impact, right? And if you look at the first 10 weeks of 2021, and compare them to 2019, there's been an 85% decrease in the number of travelers crossing the border every day. And of course, those changes affect our trade. There's no way, to deny that. Trade flows dropped off significantly in the first half of 2020, but by the end of the year, they were actually back at 92%. And since then, they have surpassed where we were before the pandemic began. So that's really great news. To me, it also speaks of the resiliency of the relationship of our cross-border trade and supply chains, and all of you in the industries who have just simply kept going, doing all that you can to prevent the economic crisis from compounding the health one. So, it's true. And as Norm mentioned, I spent 3 years in Dallas as the Consul General of Canada to the South Central United States. I covered a 5-state territory there, which was just incredible. And I spent a couple more years back in Ottawa supporting Canada-U.S. relations, as Norm mentioned. And that trade relationship between the U.S. and Canada is actually a model. It's a model for the world. I don't think anyone has a relationship like this one. It truly is balanced, it is fair, and it supports the incredible growth and innovation that we see developing in our two countries. And building on that, the roadmap that was agreed to by Prime Minister Trudeau and President Biden when they met back in February, I think represents an ambitious framework that will help to really revitalize and expand that historic bilateral relationship. The roadmap establishes a blueprint for ambitious and whole of government effort to tackle COVID-19 and to support mutual prosperity. It creates a partnership on climate change. It advances global health security, it bolsters cooperation on defense and security, and it reaffirms a shared commitment to diversity, equity, and justice. Infrastructure, clean technology, and digital technologies play such a huge role in our economies, and they also feature in this roadmap. And that's why discussions like we're having here today are so critical. So as many of you know, this is actually, and this is really exciting for everyone here, both Canada and the US are prioritizing climate resilient and green infrastructure spending to spur that economic recovery. So many of you will have seen the serious investments that have been made in this space in the recent Canadian budget, with $17.6 billion dedicated to green recovery and some pretty ambitious climate targets. And our shared focus on the environment and climate change actually present a great opportunity for us to work together. So I know that's why many of you are here today as well, and that'll be part of the conversation, because that U.S. administration's also very ambitious plans for infrastructure and clean energy. And I just want to say, and you'll hear this today, how well positioned Canada is to help advance that ambitious agenda too. The President's American Jobs Plan will invest $2 trillion, 1% of US GDP, in new spending over 8 years. That represents the most significant investment in US infrastructure since the 1960s. And the investments that are being proposed are in areas where Canadian businesses, like many of you here, have to offer. And I looked at the list of participants today, and I see some incredible Canadian leaders in transportation infrastructure, in climate and energy, in the grid, electrification, clean water, digital infrastructure, broadband, many, many, many other areas. So it's really great. So we know that Canada and the US can build back better together. And really position North America as a global leader by fostering that clean economic growth. Canadian companies in infrastructure, clean tech, or ICT, you all have a big role to play in this effort. And I know you'll hear more about those plans and opportunities throughout the course of the day, as well as how we in the Trade Commissioner Service, along with our partners, can help support you and your success. So let's look a little more closely at some of those areas for just a minute. Canada and the US do share a vision for sustainable and inclusive recovery, and our leaders have committed to working together to increase the scale and speed of action to address the climate crisis. Canadian building and construction materials are some of the best in the world. Taking advantage of those super efficient Canada-US supply chains will also help to reduce emissions associated with transportation, and given our geographic proximity, that's a huge advantage. So the roadmap for that renewed US-Canada partnership also included commitments aimed at working jointly to achieve green growth agendas, accelerating progress towards clean infrastructure and prosperous net zero emissions economy. So with building and construction materials estimated to account for about 39% of all carbon emissions in the world, including 11% from the production of the materials themselves, to invest in public infrastructure using low carbon materials and construction processes will be an important step in reaching those climate goals. And that's again where those Canadian businesses and great technologies can play a role today and in the future. Increased demand for clean products and services leverage Canadian strengths in energy storage, in renewables, in power distribution via smart grids, as well as infrastructure company expertise in services like project management and engineering and consulting. Now, as Norma and I were talking about earlier, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to reflect on something that I worked on for quite some years, and that's the Canada-US Mexico Agreement, CUSMA, or USMCA for those of you in the US, which entered into force on July 1st of last year. So CUSMA, or USMCA, represents a really important milestone in the evolution of the North American partnership by addressing 21st century trade issues like e-commerce, while reducing red tape at the border and providing enhanced predictability and stability for workers and businesses all across the continent. It provides a really great base from which we can work together bilaterally and trilaterally with stakeholders to enhance that North American competitiveness and post-pandemic economic recovery that is really inclusive. And I think about, when I say inclusive, the SME chapter that includes cooperation and joint activities to promote SMEs owned by underrepresented groups, and the exchange of information and best practices on that. And I know from my own team's efforts that there's a lot of activity going on in that space. But fundamentally, what the agreement does is reinforce those long established North American supply chains that we were talking about. And it really is all about the supply chains. Everyone I speak to, no matter what the sector, knows that those connections are the backbone of North American security and competitiveness, and supports jobs, workers, and industries on both sides of the border. It helps companies like yours to be even more successful. And we know that we not only sell to each other, we actually make a lot of things together. And the bilateral trade we have is primarily in intermediate goods that go into final products that we end up buying from each other and selling to the world. And in fact, I'm told that it's around 60% of US imports from Canada are intermediate goods that feed those American supply chains for final goods. So that's really significant. Now, as we look forward to that economic recovery, our efforts have to be focused on facilitating and strengthening bilateral trade, and those cross-border supply chains, again, are part of that, and including in relation to those infrastructure investments. And that's why our budget, again, proposed investments in physical and digital infrastructure and other measures to transform the borders and to ensure that trade and travel continue to drive Canada's economy. We have a shared vision for sustainable economic recovery in North America and the opportunities afforded by advancing clean growth driven by workers, communities, and companies. Now, part of that vision also means making sure we're doing things the right way. And our network of trade commissioners, both in the US and all around the world, actually provide a really wide range of supports to business. We make valuable introductions, we look for opportunities and share them. We provide advice on market entry strategies and all kinds of sources of financial support, but we also help with responsible business conduct, and that helps companies to de-risk the operating environment and to support Canada's strong and competitive reputation for excellence. We have a lot to be proud of and so much more to offer. So with that, I will wish everyone here an excellent day ahead. There's a fantastic lineup of speakers and panels ready to go. We're going to be talking about highways, bridges, tunnels, transit, all the exciting projects underway, as well as how your friendly local trade commissioners and our partners at EDC and in the provinces can help you to succeed. So merci, bonne journée, thank you, and have a fantastic day.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting, a fantastic way to kick us off. We really appreciate it. You know, we have over 400 and I guess 20 registrants, and I think 95% are Canadians. So there's a real strong belief in what we're going to be able to get done in terms of the U.S. Infrastructure bill. Just a quick question, because I think we're running up against time. But, you know, one of the things that strikes me is, as we move forward, we're really looking at the digitization and electrification of North America. And the US and Canada are such strong partners. Can you talk a little bit about how we're even going to be more strongly connected through almost an end-to-end logistics system? You know, in the green room, you mentioned that the distance from Port Rupert to is, you know, I'll let you finish that. Maybe that's a good way to promote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Norman, for everybody watching here, Norman and I were talking about this in the green room, and I was saying how a couple of things. One, how when I was in Dallas, I could really see how all those connectivity, how all those pieces moved. I worked really closely with BNSF, and they've got rail lines that go, you know, right from the Mexican border all the way up to actually and into Canada, into the Port of Vancouver. You know, we talk about how all kinds of you know, highways intersect, and it was such an interesting place to be there. You could see that the roads, the I-35 that joins at Laredo, you know, goes all the way up into Canada, and there was a study done by TxDOT, I think it was about 10 years ago or so, where they put some trackers on the trucks coming across at Laredo and found that about 1 in 10 end up in Canada. And I used to say when I was down in Texas that that's because we don't grow avocados here. So so there were good reasons for these connections. But you were talking about the Port of Prince Rupert, and I was saying that you know, it's actually a shorter rail distance from there to Chicago, which we all know is that distribution hub for North America, and it's a shorter distance from there into Chicago than it is even from Long Beach. And thinking about that, and thinking about how we also are competitive in the world, and how we take what we make together here in North America out to the world. You know, the East Coast and the West Coast of Canada are actually closer to both Europe and Asian ports than any of the coastal ports in the US. So it really is about that whole infrastructure, and you can see how it all moves through the continent. It's very exciting, and there's just so much. We absolutely need to be doing this together, because we are so much more competitive when we do.
That's great. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we look forward to, hopefully you can participate in some of the day with us, and maybe we'll do a physical event, and we'll have you as a luncheon speaker the next time. So
I look forward to that so much. Yeah, thank you very much, and have a fantastic day, everyone.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much. And everybody stay on this channel, and I think it'll open up for you the next session. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.